response video to the modern mystic. Yeah, been thinking about hitting this button for a couple hours, just haven't gotten around to it. We're back in the suffering stuff, nihilist kind of stuff, is there really anything to worry about kind of thing again, and I don't really get it. It's working on a hairball. Yeah, it just works on them for a while sometimes, nothing. It doesn't really make anything. Anyway, just a little distracting. Good way to start the video, though. Alright, so I wrote down some really vague notes. This is what we call a notes here. But anyway, just because it's just this connect the dot thing. And so you're connecting a dot picture, let's say, and let's say it's a complex picture, and you might have something like you can narrow it down, and it is something for a minute, and then you say, oh, wait a minute, it's not really that, it's something else. And then you work on that bit, and then it turns back into something, the thing you thought it was originally, and then it's off again, and then it's on again. And it's sort of like that when you do this brain thing, when you start picking it apart, because you start to go, okay, well, the real thing is we have a brain because it creates behavior. So we can get that part. Like, there's stuff happening. Natural selection has made me into a DNA replicator. The replicator needs to get the replication made. Okay, so it has to do certain things to get that done. The brain is there to make me do the certain things that'll get the certain things done that'll get the replication made. So you can just see some sort of, push, pull kind of syndrome. Not even a pull, let's just say a push syndrome. The world comes in, pushes through the little mechanism, the mechanism moves. Pretty straightforward. Nothing to see here, kind of thing. So what? It's moon going around Earth. Stuck. Mechanism. Physics. Nothing else there. Just stuff bouncing off stuff, producing stuff, bouncing off stuff, producing stuff, bouncing off stuff, producing stuff. Alright. So then we know also that this brain, to do this behavioring thing, came upon this trick where let's put another brain in there. Let's like it doubled up on nucleuses to create more complex cellular organisms. Yeah, it's like, let's put another brain in. Let's just eat another brain, put another brain inside this brain. And let's have this brain react, and then have the other brain react to that brain, kind of idea. And so that's what I would say is the invention of the feeling brain, or the emotive brain, or the, whatever you want to call it, the first brain, brain one. So there's already now more than one of you in here, right? There's feeling brain and thinking brain, you could say. It might be even more than that, but let's just stay with those two for the moment. And the purpose is to create some kind of vague notion of attraction and repulsion, because that does the behavior thing, right? So you have a brain that creates this idea that, tendency brain. Let's call it that. We can even call it brain that creates tendency, because having this one size fits all kind of reaction brain might not be too constructive in a lot of circumstances. It might get you eaten. It might get you into trouble. And so if you have a tendency brain, then it's not as knee-jerky and it's not as predictable. So other things can't predict what it's going to do. So they can't have a standard behavior to consume you or to hurt you or to beat you. And so it gives you this variability, adaptability to different environments. You can behave differently in different circumstances, depending on the size of the threat even. You could say, bear versus tiger, or something. Bird with sharp teeth, I don't know, versus tiger. And you'd have a different threat response. Am I afraid of 10 birds, or does it take a few hundred before I'm worried? Well, anyway, I don't want to get into that complexity. I just mean that we can see in physics attraction and repulsion as these kinds of ideas of a force. I might say they're made out of one thing, just reinterpretations, depending on what angle you look at the one thing. The car is either coming towards you or the car is moving away from you, depending on how you look at it. And so you could say attraction and repulsion are the same mechanism, just looked at from different places, but it doesn't matter. The point is we know those in physics, so we know that could have an important effect as a behavioral device to create desire and fear, discomfort, comfort. That these mechanisms could be used by a reflexive machine, a reflexer, to create nuance in behavior, to enhance or make behavior even more productive, more to the purpose, to the cause of the survivability of the molecule. The third aspect you could add to that is the idea that this motivating brain would be conditioned by an environment, so it would learn what's important, what's not important, what it finds attractive and what it finds unattractive, what it fears and desires. Could be to some way nuanced and fudged with and changed. Okay, and then you have because these two brains have been living with each other for a long time, there is some capacity to nuance them, for them to play with each other a little bit. Emotions provoking thinking, thinking provoking placing a new context on things. So there could be something you're afraid of, and then you find its Achilles heel, you find its weakness, and then you find a way to even control your fear now. Now the thing no longer provokes the response because you have the Achilles heel understanding where at any moment you can knock it down, you can negate it as being a problem. So you can have a visceral reaction to the threat of spiders or snakes or some other thing, and then your brain can contextualize that and have knowledge that it's controllable, though. You get it behind its neck and you own it. It can't do anything. So that can give you the confidence to navigate it. And so you're no longer driven by the emotional brain, you're driven by the context that's been placed on top of that by knowledge and understanding and all of this crap. Alright, so then we end up with the words I've been using is illusion. Feelings are an illusion. Our brain creates this idea of it. It's a theater. It's a fake. What's going on inside our heads is fake. Consciousness is fake. But then I go back to the Einstein line about time. It's one hell of an illusion. It's one hell of a fake. So it really doesn't matter that it's fake, because it's such a good fake that it might as well be real. And I buy that as a reality. I mean, it doesn't really matter that our brain is just creating something, contriving it. That's another word I use. It has found this contrivance of sensation to move us to do behavior, to move brain to. We create this motivating device to force the brain to do something about it, to create the internal problem that needs the external solution. And that's really what it is, right? I mean, we sense the world, we internally make it a problem. The problem isn't in the world, right? It really isn't. The world is just doing the universe thing. Tyrannosaurus about to stomp on kitty. Well, that doesn't mean much, right? It just means big thing is going to squish little thing. There's no automatically something wrong with that. It's just matter, crushing matter, consuming matter, re-changing matter. So what? I mean, there's nothing. The fact that matter bangs into matter, rain falls on the ground, rocks fall off cliffs, lots of things move in the environment and interact in the environment. So there's nothing intrinsic in that is meaningful, that does anything. But our brain, obviously, has a tendency to recognize things in that environment that are meaningful. So the creation of reality in our brain is different than that reality. That reality doesn't mean anything. This one creates something that might be called meaning, because it'll understand, oh, but wait, that little kitty feels, and it's going to be hurt, and it's going to have a bad time, and so now I need to do something, to stop little kitty from getting harmed, because it bothers me by programming, by understanding, by empathy, by everything rational to me, that I see something there. I'm recognizing there's something going on. It's not just matter mattering. It's I've made the matter matter. All right, now it's getting a little trickier. I just get back to the illusion part of it and projection part of it. And I like the word projection for lots of reasons. Not only in the idea of just a projector, because our brain takes in reality, recreates it, projects a new copy of it inside of us with weighting on things. Things are now value weighted in our copy. And there's a necessity of certain interactions, a certain value, those values change. It's not just matter mattering anymore. It's matter mattering. It matters what happens to the matter now. It is funny how language just by accident has these words that are so messed up. I mean, the idea of matter being this, just a way of describing physical stuff, and then matter being a word describing when something is significant. And they're mattering in two different worlds, right? Mattering in the world of things that matter, things that are important, and matter in the matter world where things aren't important, where it's just subatomic particles and electricity and molecular interactions. And but again, so it's all fake. It's a fake orchestration, a recreation of reality in a perverse and bent way inside our brain, the brain thing. But it's still, I just don't see how you turn it off. You blip it all out of the mattering world, the not physical matter, the sensible mattering world, how that universe turns off, merely because you understand it to be a mechanism. I mean, the fact that it's contrived by nature to create behavior, the fact that it's just a representation of reality, an illusion, a projection, I just don't see how that means it's nothing. It's still something. It's still being created. And almost by the nature of the function, you could argue it has significance in that it's playing on this idea of attraction and repulsion, an idea that exists in both of those worlds. It exists in this fake world, but it also does exist in that world. The basic force of movement is made out of this idea of moving away from and moving towards. I mean, the idea of falling into the gravity well and being shot out of the nucleus. These are concepts that are fundamental to the physical world, and they're fundamental to this illusion, this projected world that we live in, the hologram, whatever you want to call it. And it certainly manifests as a clear distinction that it's better to be attracted than repulsed. It's just intrinsically better, fundamentally better, without a doubt better, preferable. And I'm just going to argue that, just as we would put plus and minus signs on attraction and repulsion, there's a plus and minus correlate inside of our brain attached to this idea of fear and desire, of comfort and discomfort. And one is the negation of the other. That would be my argument. Again, I don't know how deep to argue this rabbit hole crap. Because I'm going to argue. I think a truth. I don't have as good a hard a proof of it as other arguments to make, and I don't even know if it's a necessary argument to make. But yeah, that it's never a real positive. That all there is the negative, and that all you can do is have more or less of the negative. And when you create less of the negative, that appears to be a positive. and that's all there is. There's just digging ourselves out of a need hole and digging ourselves out of a discomfort hole to get to this comfort level, which ends up being, when you get completely undiscomforted, you end up euphoric. And that's really the gain. There is no actual positive. There's just getting rid of the encumbrances, the burdens, the irritants, the pollution, the dirty bits, and the nasty bits. So, I can understand it as a theoretical argument that somehow this illusion brain is meaningless in terms of what it's creating. But, my personal experience with it just screams, and I mean screams it, that you just can't turn it into nothing. You can't take away that positive and negative function, not only just the functionality of it, but just the idea that this, whatever this illusion it is taking place inside our brain, creating all this noise that ends up just being behavior. The truth is, by making it, it might just be a byproduct of brain function, a byproduct of creating behavior, just going from, brain to behavior, as straight a line as possible. That's the only function of the brain, is the behavior. But this byproduct that it's creating, this noise, like an engine noise, would be a byproduct. It wouldn't be what you're after. You're after movement. You're not after making noise. But that the noise ends up being the significant bit. The byproduct ends up having the real substance. And so it's not about being behavior machines so much as it is being feeling machines. So the byproduct is now the meaningful bit, the bit that really is doing something. So I'm sort of making that argument that if it was like a car, the movement is nice, it's great that this thing can do this stuff, but the bit that really matters, that people aren't getting, is this noisy bit. This noisy bit is meaningful. And, but I just don't know how the default isn't to come up with some, we can go back to religious arguments or anything. Who has the obligation to prove the statement? Who has the obligation to provide the evidence? To me, I can't be conscious. I can't go through these welfare states. I can't go through a day and say, oh, I got a headache, or oh, I'm nauseous, and not say that means nothing. It's nothing. It doesn't mean anything. How can it not mean anything? I'm experiencing it. I know it's a nasty bit. It says nasty bit all over it. It's just going nasty bit really loud. I just don't. How can I, where do I get any evidence of the God saying, no, it's not a nasty bit after all? That's I think it's an extraordinary claim to say everything my body and my mind, my consciousness, screams at me in terms of this experience sucks, to say it doesn't suck, Where do I get any evidence of that? I can't find any evidence of it not sucking anywhere. I mean, again, and to say I'm not conscious would be silly. I mean, quite obviously, whether it's an illusion or not, I'm conscious. I mean, there is this interaction going on in my brain creating these sensations for the purpose of creating reactions to create other reactions, to create other reactions, to create other reactions that, in an instance, through that filtering, create something called filtered behavior, behavior that is nuanced to the circumstance, that is intended to produce the result, which is the survival of the machine and the continuation of a molecule in its crude function. And obviously we've defeated so much of that that's not even the agenda anymore. And it's certainly not the agenda. And to say I'm cheating language, I would argue that, well, isn't that sort of nonsense? Because we can see how controlled the whole human race is by this language. So, that's a little bit bogus, I think. I mean, it'd be nice if we could all have that conversation. If we could all just have the conversation about where is the burden of proof. How much, what is there, in the sense that, let's say time is a property of distance. I could make that argument. I could say whenever you create distance, you create time, because distance can only be traversed at a certain speed. And once that is established, you've got a thing called time. I mean, and I'm just saying that once I have a brain, once I have this interaction thing, and I have a brain that's creating a brain, it's creating a brain creates a projection for another brain to look at, and then it projects another projection that it throws in front of the first brain to complete a cycle of feedback. And it's like power steering, maybe. You have the idea of just steering, and you have gears and you turn the wheel and the wheel turns. Or you can have this little motor, that every time you go a certain way, it kicks in and boosts it one way or the other way. And so it empowers the steering into these different directions, and we could say that that's sort of what this feedback mechanism does, is it magnifies, it strengthens, it embiggens, concepts and ideas, and that does that whole exaggerated feed, fight, flight. It's really three. They always give you the two, but it's like feed, flight, fight. There's probably some others in there, to be fair to it. And that the machinery is just built to just exaggerate these components. But why it's constructed, we can dissect and explain. Why it is brain behavior, why this behavior is conducive to, why this more complex behavior is conducive to survival, we can certainly understand. I think we can understand that it is an illusion, that it has hardware to it. Okay, that's very mechanical. It's like the stage has a wooden floor, and it has sheetrock walls, and it has curtains, and all these things by themselves are nothing. But when you make the whole theater and you put the actors in there, there's something. And it's like this turns into something once this brain is doing this interaction. It's obviously doing something pretty... I mean, I just can't negate it. I can't find any handle on it where I can grab it and say, oh yeah, I can see where this whole thing is nothing. It still seems like something to me. I can't logically see how I can possibly evade it. And certainly experiencing it. I mean, when you're experiencing really, nasty suffering, there's nothing about it that says, I'm just fooling you, Gary. I'm just a bunch of fake unpleasantness. I'm not really unpleasant. No, it's saying, I'm real, I'm real, I'm real. I mean, it's fucking yelling at you this is fucking happening, fucker. So I just, I just don't, I'm not saying you're being insincere. I'm not saying you're saying you don't believe this stuff. And I don't know, maybe we are. I mean, I just don't know what to say to this argument because I can't see it. I can't find any way, even if it is batshit insane, maybe, illusion, I'm just not illusion. I mean crazy. I mean, it's obviously just, even if it is an illusion, I just don't see how you can negate it. Nature made one hell of a fake. I mean, there's just no way it does everything a diamond does. I mean, it's as solid thing as anything in the universe. This thing is fucking kick ass as a thing, this conscious thing. And it's to say it isn't happening because it isn't conforming to some necessity to put it in a jar and say, here's some of it in a jar, look at it. I mean, because you can't do that with the illusion. I don't think that means it fails the test of being real as hell. It's really real. So anyway, that's all I can make out of this. I'll see if I can think of some other way to explain why I am not seeing the handle you're seeing. I'm not seeing the obvious, it's a curtain, just pull the curtain back, there's the wizard, there is no fire, there's no anything else, although this whole idea of this suffering, mattering thing is all just nonsense. Well, I just don't see that. I can't find any curtain, I can't find any wizard. I can certainly know that even when I sit here and say, it's just bullshit, and I start playing with the bullshit, it's like, fuck, this bullshit isn't bullshit. I mean, this isn't bullshit. The spoon's a fucking spoon. The knife's a fucking knife. I mean, this shit is real, okay? This isn't the fucking Matrix. You just don't make it go away. If you prick me, do I not bleed? Well, I goddamn bleed and I goddamn feel. And you can't just undo that shit. And it has a character that has a correlate in reality in this idea of force repulsion and force attraction, and that's where the core of its positive and negative, its good bad function, I think it's a manifestation of that. So I think it has a very real correlate in the material universe. I don't want to strangle this. But yeah, I can't, I'd really like if we could all just change vocabulary. I'd like to do the me brain thing, my brain, my programming, my conditioning, my whatever, brain 1, brain 2, whatever, however to do it. I wish we had these, I wish this was a common way to understand what part of you is talking when you're talking. Your emotional parts, your emotional bits, your logical bits, your big perspective bits, your small perspective bits, your short-term bits, long-term bits. I mean, it is annoying that people are speaking from different corners of because it's not that it's that complicated. It really isn't. I mean, we can identify like these obvious bits, the obvious from, our conditioned reactions versus our thoughtful reactions. I mean, just simple stuff like that. We can definitely identify the difference between, the stuff that we're interpreting, when we're interpreting with the cruder side of ourselves versus the more intelligent side. But anyway, that's all I can do with it for now.